Grazie Antinea.
Thank you, Anthilea. Thank you all for inviting CLEDU to this important event. As concerned what has already said, it has nothing to do with the court or is if CLEDU is a project of the University of Palermo, of the Department of Jurisprudence, in which lawyers, actors, operators, professionals, legal professionals work, doctors, students, and experts of immigration, who have as a common project 3 activities within the university. A front office in which we meet users, asylum seekers, foreign citizens, or operators of communities needing support in Piazza Bologna, within the Department of Law, and training, education for students of law, of the law faculty. And all these students are included in the activities of the front office. In this manner, they can experience the practical side of law and not only of what they study in the books, and the widespread of a culture of an alternative use of law in contact with the mechanisms of social justice, with the creation of a diffused culture concerning the criticism to bad practices in order to modify them. For example, there is the strategic litigation in order to create a network on the territory of synergies with other social and legal professionals concerned with our issues. In 2016, we received the request of legal assistance for foreign unaccompanied children who arrived, and therefore we had to meet this need in terms of legal assistance concerning different profiles for a series of themes and indications concerning users, children. And as to the issue, I will present, and I'm very happy to intervene after the speech of Usm, because I think that there are some pieces that are correlated. The protection of the foreign unaccompanied children. Foreign children have 2 different connotations. Children can be victim of crimes. We heard it in the first speeches, or they can be accused in criminal proceedings, so they can be the perpetrators of crime. I would like to talk about our experience during these years, the types of situations and the type of critical situations. But it is possible to have a possibility of critical intervention, of correction of the systems that do not work. Concerning foreign children that are victims and that are perpetrators of crime. So we have recorded a short number of cases in which children arrive at the trial as an offender. There has been an assessment of the crime committed. I'm not referring to processes managed by investigations facilities such as crimes of trafficking. I'm talking about common crimes to the heritage to people. So it is not often that the story of a child emerges in terms of victim of a crime. The story emerges. The story that emerges is casual. There are actors involved in children care, such as Save the Children. So they accept the presence and the hypothesis of a crime of children. And so they are referred to judicial facilities, authorities. These data are significant because it is the expression of an invisibility dimension of the children in the reception facilities, because the actors should monitor the exercise of the rights. So we observe some cases of proceedings for work exploitation. We are concerned with the proceeding in which children of a community were used to work in fields close to the community, and the managers were aware of this, and there is a proceeding in progress, and we have seen this from the examination. So they were used to work in agricultural fields, so in fields of the community or of the families, or within a pizzeria, in restaurants. Just to give you the idea of this situation, many hours of work per day, remunerated with biscuits, good suggestions, the work in restaurants and in pizzeria, 10 or 12 hours per day, 50 euros per week. What does this say? There is an important problem that comes from the absence of links on the territory. They are not aware of their rights. I remember that one of these boys that said, when I asked, why do you work for 50 euros per week? He said, it's a lot of money for me. So he had just arrived in Italy, and so for him, 50 euros per week was a lot. So there is a lack of monitoring of what happens within communities. Projects are renewed without the right attention to the real functioning of the facilities. There is the fear of the child to worsen the condition, and there is a situation of dependency on the perpetrators of the crime. It's a relationship linked to the fear to worsen the situation, because they don't know where to go if they lose their place. And there is the absence or lack of experience of the actors who should protect. We also observed other situation. We also saw this crime of mistreatment, and not the physical mistreatment, but we are referring to a situation of degradation of a community in which the child lives, absence of a fridge, of hot water, of rotten food, unavailability of water, because there are children who say they have to go, that they have to go and fetch the water to fountains, heating, absence of heating. So they had not suitable clothes. So a set of aspects, and, and, and so it is clear that all these situations can integrate the crime of mistreatment, the crime of mistreatment. From another point of view of the child perpetrator of the crime, so the cases of crime are similar to those already mentioned. We have children who are within communities and who are victims of violence, and who commit violence also in terms and threats, private violence committed towards professionals of the community. It happened that we saw this. We experienced that these experiences, for example, a child who closes the door of the professional saying, you don't leave this room if you don't give me the pocket money. So these are crimes like extortion. And so in a context that has to be clarified, because the exercise of the criminal action. And then the classical case of false declarations concerning the personal identity, and a few crimes against people and their heritage, assets, robberies, for example. What are the situations we had to work on? So we observed a series of critical elements in the intervention of the police within the community determines a report that does not take the point of view of the child into account. The point of view of the children is not collected through the witnesses of other subjects, other children or other people who can an indication. Interpreters are always absent, and so children do not understand what is happening. And the intervention of the police is a sudden intervention. And we have observed this absence of the information of the child concerning his or her rights. And the lawyer will then meet the lawyer, but they will have and then the information at this point, the information of this criminal proceeding. There is a huge problem concerning the content of the deeds of the documents, and they are not translated, and in many other cases the notification is given in a community where the child is no longer present. And so the notification is given to the community. It is clear that all this clears a huge problem because the child does not know that there is a criminal proceeding, and very often in the case of or when the place of residence of the child is not sure, it's not possible to meet the child, draw up a report for the judge, the fundamental action for the preliminary hearing that will determine the exercise of the criminal action and the possibility of intervention. Having said this, this situation the situations we experienced, excluding a small percentage of situations in which the crime had been committed, and so it was necessary to activate the path. In most cases, we had three types of situations, and I'm referring to more than 90% of cases we managed for foreign unaccompanied children. The first situation is that the crime is the reaction to a violation to the children within the community. So the child is actually a victim of a crime, of serious bad operations of the community. And so the trial is as a contestation of private violence. And so the child, for example, was forced to work somewhere and he or she had not been paid. And so he or she has this reaction. You have, I worked, so you have to pay. Another situation, for example, when there is when there is the situation in which, for example, a child buys a boiler because it is cold within the community, and because I need hot water, and so I buy a boiler for hot water. These personal assets are confiscated by the personnel of the community without giving suitable explication, and this triggers the reaction. The pocket money that is not given, even if the community has not the problems with the sums that are received.
Another typical situation is the one, another important case that happened to us of misappropriation, referred to a girl who's still without papers. So some of her relatives who were living in Europe sent her payment to her, to the community, to the center, but the center didn't give the money to her. So all these cases, again, there was a very severe reaction by the girl, and for which the police was brought in. And again, this is another way where actually all the misactions against the child can be reported to the police. So we had 5 policemen who stepped in against this young 17-year-old girl. And obviously, this is an issue, a big issue. That is to say, it is with the help of what is said, what is reported by the child. It is fundamental to retrace, to reconstruct the whole event, what happened, and everything has to be reported to the magistrate. And in the best possible way, it is very important for the child, if the child is the victim of some infringement of the law, that has the opportunity to tell what happened. So we know that unfortunately in many cases the child is always thought to be an offender and has to apologize and repent, unfortunately. Then there was another case of children with psychiatric issues who had not been properly identified and detected within the various reception centers or the various houses where the child was hosted. There in some cases children have difficulties in controlling their own reactions, or they are overreacting. Then there was another case that we handled, that is to say, that was a clear mistake in investigations. This referred to a case in which the child was even in detention. The mistake in the actually in the assessment of or in the investigations was caused by the fact that victims were shown the sort of rogue, all the pictures of likely suspects, of likely offenders, and victims actually were not able to recognize the right offenders. The pictures were only black and white pictures, and actually there was a sort of bias towards black people. For example, the victims would describe the likely offender because the offender was black with thick lips, for example, with protruding lips, or with glasses. And based on these simple descriptions, they would just point to the offender. But this was a clear misjudgment and mistake in investigations. So again, we would need correct investigation protocols in what we normally do within CLEDU to provide legal assistance to children is, first of all, to meet the child several times. First of all, to make the child aware of what's happening to him or her, to make him aware, to make him actually understand what's going on. and to give the child the opportunity to say and to tell his story. So it's very important to have an active role. That is to say, all documents, all evidence has to be completed with the personal history of the child, to try and prevent practices that drive towards a sense of acceptance of the crime that has been committed. In addition, we think that we would need to work in certain areas, such as training of law enforcement operators, of interpreters, translators, cultural mediators, all the professionals that are involved in the criminal proceedings of child offenders. Another important point is to monitor the various centers where these children are living and hosted. Also, schools must be aware of all the rights of children. And last but not least, children must be aware that they are the subject of the entire criminal proceeding, and they are an active player, not just a passive subject. I have finished. Thank you. Thank you, Serene.